Okay, today we're going to talk about all kinds of cell transport. So, the first one that we're going to talk about is diffusion. So, diffusion, diffusion is just the movement of particles from areas of high to low. So, it's movement of particles from high to low. Okay, and it's passive transport. This doesn't take any energy at all. No energy, just does that. So it's kind of like if I sprayed some perfume right here, the whole class would eventually smell the perfume because those particles are going to go from areas of high concentration to low concentration. And so that's just kind of particles. But the part that's really important to us when we're talking about human body and cells is osmosis. And osmosis is the movement of water from areas of high to low. This is also passive. And this is important because you have to be able to have the right tonicity for your cells. Like if I'm teaching a real class and they've got human beings here, I usually say, how many of you have had an IV and you're not dead? And a lot of people have had them and they're not dead because they had an isotonic solution. And I'm going to talk to you about those three solutions here in a second. So osmosis and diffusion are ways that things are transported in and out of cells. You also have this thing called facilitated diffusion. Facilitated just means help, so it's just diffusion with some help, right? So it's just diffusion through these protein channels, movement of particles from areas of high to low always, okay? Facilitated help, right? So diffusion with the use of channels. And it's from areas of high to low. All three of these guys are passive. All of them passive transport. And what does that mean? It means that it uses no energy, okay? No cellular energy, okay? And what is that cellular energy? You learned it last unit. That cellular energy is ATP, but this doesn't need any ATP because it's passive. Oh, it's purple. It's not a good. Uh, it's not a good eraser, but it'll have to do. Videos are just like teaching. If you don't handle it, you end up making a million of them. Okay, so let's talk about osmosis. And we have three types of solutions. This is really important. Okay, so you have three types of solutions when we're talking about osmosis. Okay, so you have isotonic, hypotonic, and hypertonic. Okay, isotonic, hypotonic, and hypertonic. Type of solution. You have a little picture of this in the notes that I gave you personally with my handwriting. Okay, it's one of my favorite charts to make. Okay, so when we're talking about these solutions, we are talking about the solute concentration outside the cell. Solute on outside cell. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about what's going to happen, which is actually water movement. And then what's going to happen? Oh. All right. So, isotonic. Okay. So, isotonic means that it's all equal. Equal on the inside and outside. Okay. Water movement. Water never stays still. Okay. Everything's always moving. Okay. If particles move to one side of the room, they don't stop. They just may come to another side of the room. Water's the same way. Okay. So, your water movement is equally in and out of the cell. And the cell stays the same size. Okay? Cell stays the same size. It's perfect. Okay? It's perfect balance, right? Okay, hypotonic. Hypotonic means that the solid concentration outside the cell is lower. Okay? The water is actually going to move into the cell, and the cell is actually going to explode. Okay? So, let's talk about my dumb ways to remember things. Hypotonic, it's lower. And what's going to happen to the cell? The cell's going to explode. Okay? Bad. If you are a blood cell, that's bad. It's bad. All right, hypertonic. So if it's lower in a hypotonic, you know in the hypertonic, the outside is going to be higher. Okay? It's going to move out of the cell, and the cell is going to shrivel. Okay? I kind of always think about that is outside of me, I'm hyper, but I'm not a little girl. Most of the time, hyper people have higher energy. They got to get that energy out, and they're usually pretty thin, and so the cell's going to shrivel. So, why does this matter to you, right? Because that's what you're thinking. Why do I care? What does it matter? Well, it matters to you, especially if you're going to go to the medical field, because it matters because of IVs. Okay? It matters because of IVs. This is your IV. Okay? Right here. Your little cell, your little blood cell, this little blood cell is 0.09% salt. Okay? The solution is it in is also 0.9% salt. Perfect little solution. Hypotonic, on the other hand, 0.9% salt, not 0.09. It's been a long day, kids. Long day. All right. You got your 0.9% NaCl, okay? And if this is distilled water, which means there's like no solid in here, okay? The water is going to go in, and that cell's going to blow up. This one, it's equally in and out. And then hypertonic solution is going to be like 10% salt. Okay? And that's going to go out, and it's going to shrivel. Okay? So this is kind of really important to you. And it's important that you remember like these dumb ways to remember things because it helps. There's a lot of stuff in anatomy that you really have to think about. And this dumb ways to remember things will help you. All right, so we have one more little thing to talk about on this one. And then I'll probably make some cell video tomorrow about cell parts. It's like my real class where I gotta actually do this. And you guys gotta wait a minute. All right, dropping stuff. Okay, so we talked about passive transport. Then we have active transport. Okay, active transport, okay, is transport using energy. And remember, cellular energy is always in the form of ATP. Okay? Now, we've got lots of different mechanisms for active transport. But the one that I want you to remember and you think about, right, is your sodium potassium pumps. Okay? Pumps are always active because you're like, when you pump something up, you're using energy. Always active. Okay? So remember that. Then we've got some different ways that cells bring things in and release things. Okay? And these are big things, so they're going to take energy. Our first one is endocytosis. Okay? And this is where the cell takes in big stuff. Okay? Cell takes in big stuff. Endo, taking it in, right? So you can have pinocytosis and phagocytosis. So pino is taking in liquids. Phago is taking in food particles, virus particles, just not a liquid, right? Pino, I remember this by if I need a pint of beer, pino, pint, liquid, right? Phago, phago, that's like food or big particles. You also have like receptor-mediated endocytosis, We talked a little bit about proteins on the outside of cells being like little communication pieces. Receptor mediated means that something would attach to it and tell you to take in that particle. So it's just receptor mediated. And then the last piece is exocytosis. And that is the release of waste into the ECF. Okay? Exo, release or exit of waste into the extracellular fluid. And that is cell transport in a nutshell. You're going to do some of those little labs on your virtual labs, and those are like diffusion and osmosis, and those are pretty cool, and they'll help you see all the things that we talked about today. All right, have a great day, and I will talk to you about cells tomorrow.